The first scream sliced through the monastery courtyard before Daniel even understood it was his son's voice. He spun around, heart hammering, as Eli dropped to his knees on the cracked stone floor, clutching the glowing necklace that pulsed like a beating heart. The monks shouted something in a language Daniel didn't recognize, rushing toward the boy, but Daniel got there first. He grabbed Eli's shoulders, shaking, terrified, unable to breathe. Eli, look at me. Please, look. The boy's eyes were wide with shock, his lips trembling, and the sound that came out of him didn't belong to someone who had lived his entire life in silence. It was a noise full of terror, full of pain, and full of something else, something Daniel had never heard from his child. A sound. His son had made a sound. Daniel froze, mind spinning. For 12 years, Eli had never reacted to thunder, to traffic, to fireworks exploding just outside the window. For 12 straight birthdays, Daniel sang to him, with nothing but hope in his chest, hoping maybe this time his son would turn toward his voice. But now, here, at a monastery he didn't understand, holding a necklace he didn't trust, Eli was screaming. Then everything went white. The light swallowed the courtyard, the monks, Daniel's panic, and the echo of Eli's cry. It rose like a wave and crashed into Daniel's senses until everything vanished. And then silence. Real, total silence, the kind he knew too well. Silence, and then darkness. He didn't know how long he was unconscious. Could have been seconds or hours. But when he opened his eyes again, everything around him was gone. The monks, the courtyard, the mountains, the glow, the screaming, all of it. Instead, he was lying on a cold hospital floor 12 years earlier. People were shouting. Nurses were pushing him away from a stretcher. Someone yelled, "Sir, you have to move back." Another voice cried out, "The mother isn't stable. We're losing her." His breath shattered. He remembered this moment. No, he was reliving it. He heard the machines beeping, the frantic shouting, and then a doctor turned to him with a face Daniel would never forget. She didn't make it. Everything inside him broke again just as violently as the first time. He dropped to the hospital tiles, hands shaking, vision slipping in and out. A baby cried somewhere in the hall. He jerked his head up. That sound, that one tiny cry, cut deeper than anything in his life. Because he already knew what the doctors would say next, already knew the words that would carve his future into something he never asked for. "Sir," a nurse said softly, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your son is alive, but he was born deaf." The presence snapped back like a whip. Daniel woke up gasping on a dusty apartment floor, drenched in sweat, his lungs burning. The same apartment he lived in with Eli. The same pile of unpaid bills on the table. The same broken man staring at his shaking hands. He didn't understand what he had just seen, whether it was a vision, a memory, or something impossible. But he knew one thing. The monastery was real. The necklace was real. The miracle was real, because for a single terrifying moment, his son had screamed, and Eli had heard it. Daniel rubbed his face, trying to slow the pounding in his chest. His hands were still trembling uncontrollably. It wasn't just fear. It wasn't just confusion. It was hope, a dangerous, impossible hope he had buried years ago. He stood up and stumbled down the hallway to Eli's room, quietly easing the door open. The pale blue nightlight glowed against the posters on the wall. Planets, stars, galaxies. Eli loved anything silent. Space didn't need sound. He felt at home with it. The boy was asleep in bed, peaceful, breathing softly, unaware of the chaos that had just swallowed his father's mind. Daniel stepped closer, brushing hair gently from Eli's forehead. You screamed," he whispered, even though he knew Eli couldn't hear him. "I heard you. You were scared and you screamed." His voice cracked. and I swear I'm going to figure out why." A sudden tapping on the window made him flinch. He spun, heart racing, but it was just a branch brushing the glass. He took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Everything started with that moment earlier that week when the lights flickered for the first time. He remembered it clearly. He had been searching through his late wife's belongings, something he avoided for years because the grief was still raw. When Eli tapped him on the arm and pointed to a wall panel, the boy kept signing insistently, "There, open." Daniel didn't understand why his son knew about it, but he removed the wooden board, revealing a small dust-covered box with a lock fused shut. Inside was the journal, the necklace, and secrets he never imagined his wife kept. He lifted the necklace that night under the lamp. It was cold, heavier than it looked, carved with symbols that felt familiar but foreign. He traced the lines slowly, and the apartment lights flickered. At first he laughed, told himself it was faulty wiring, until Eli touched the necklace and the flicker turned into a pulse. The wall clock rattled, the nightlight dimmed, and Eli, for the first time in his life, turned toward the sound of Daniel's voice. That moment gnawed at Daniel's mind. A miracle didn't just happen. Something triggered it. Something connected Eli to the world he had never heard. And now, after the monastery vision, after seeing his son scream, Daniel knew this wasn't a dream or stress or grief. Something was awakening inside Eli. He needed answers. He went back to the kitchen table, pulled out the journal, and flipped to the first page written in his wife's handwriting. "If something ever happens to me and Eli is born into silence, follow the signs. You'll know when his silence becomes too loud to ignore." Daniel exhaled shakily and kept reading. "I tried to tell you about the village, about the monks, about the necklace, but I knew you wouldn't believe me. Not until it was time." He closed his eyes, fighting tears. He hadn't believed anything back then, not even in himself. He whispered into the quiet apartment, "Why didn't you tell me all this sooner? I would have listened. I swear I would have tried to understand." That was a lie. He knew it. Even she probably knew it. But the journal continued. "Your son will hear, Daniel, but not the way other children do when the necklace awakens, so will the path." Daniel looked down at the strange symbols curling across the metal. One symbol in particular glowed faintly in the light. He hadn't noticed it before. He pulled his phone closer, opened the camera, and zoomed in, and then froze. Because the symbol carved into the necklace was the same symbol he had seen glowing on the monastery floor when Eli screamed, he stared at it, barely breathing, as a chilling realization washed over him. That place wasn't a vision. It was a memory, a future memory, and something inside Eli was calling him back to it. He didn't know how. He didn't know why. But he knew one thing for certain. Whatever was happening to his son, it was just beginning. Daniel barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blinding white light again. Eli on the ground, the monks shouting, the necklace pulsing, his son screaming for the first time in his life. He kept jolting awake, breathless, shaking. Something had shifted inside him, something deep, primal, and desperate. He couldn't ignore what happened. Not anymore. By morning, he sat at the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring blankly at the wall. His heartbeat felt slow and heavy, like it was sinking deeper into his chest. With every thud, he didn't know where to start. The world felt too big. The problem felt too impossible. But his son wasn't impossible. Eli had proven that. He forced himself to stand and walk to the kitchen. The apartment was quiet except for the faint sound of the ceiling fan clicking with each rotation. He poured water into a cup, but his hands were shaking so badly half of it spilled on the counter. He gripped the edge of the sink, breathing hard. Get it together. Get it together, he whispered to himself. He turned around and froze. Eli was standing in the hall, staring at him. The boy blinked slowly, head tilted, messy hair falling over his forehead. His eyes looked different, sharper, as if he was noticing things he'd never noticed before. "Hey, Bud," Daniel whispered softly. Eli didn't hear him. Of course he didn't. But he stepped closer, studying Daniel's face with unusual focus. Then he lifted both hands and signed, "Are you okay?" Daniel forced a smile. "I'm all right," he said gently, then repeated the message with signs. He didn't want to scare the boy. Eli looked unconvinced. He pointed toward the table, the journal, the necklace. "You were reading." "Yeah," Daniel said, rubbing his neck. I wanted to understand your mom better." Eli stepped closer to the table, eyes landing on the necklace first. He lifted it gently, letting it rest in his palm. The metal pulsed faintly again. Daniel swallowed. "Does it feel weird when you touch it?" Eli didn't respond immediately. He held the necklace against his chest and closed his eyes. After a moment, he signed, "Warm." Warm wasn't right. The necklace had always been cold, unnaturally cold, even when held tightly. But when Daniel reached out and touched it, a soft thrum vibrated through his fingertips, almost like a heartbeat. Eli looked up at him. "Go back." Daniel's breath caught. "Go back where?" Eli made the sign again, slower. Then he pointed at the journal, then at the necklace, then toward the door. His expression was serious, far more serious than a 12-year-old should be. The place in the vision. Daniel shook his head. "Eli, I don't even know what that place is. It could be in another country, another continent. We have no idea how far away." Eli stomped his foot. Daniel blinked in shock. The boy rarely showed frustration. Not like this. Eli signed aggressively. "We have to go." Daniel swallowed hard. His voice trembled. "Why, Eli? Why now?" Eli hesitated, then signed something Daniel had never seen him sign before, something that made his stomach twist. "I heard something." Daniel froze completely. Slowly, cautiously, he signed back. "Heard what?" Eli pointed to his ear, then pointed to the necklace, then signed, "Voices." Daniel's entire body went cold. His knees almost buckled. "You heard voices? Eli, what do you mean voices? Like people? Like someone talking?" Eli nodded. Daniel stepped back, gripping the edge of the table like the floor was tilting under him. He had wanted a miracle, begged for one, dreamed of one for years, but this, hearing voices through a necklace, was not the miracle he had imagined. What were they saying?" he whispered, though Eli couldn't hear him. The boy took a moment, thinking through the signs, slowly and deliberately. "Calling me." Daniel's breath stuttered. They said, "Come." He staggered into a chair, shaking his head. "This can't be real. This can't be real." But Eli wasn't done. Then he touched Daniel's arm and signed again, softer this time. "I'm scared." That broke him, completely. Daniel cupped Eli's face gently, resting his forehead against the boy's. "It's okay," he whispered, even though he felt anything but okay. "I'm here. I'm right here." Eli kept signing the same word into Daniel's shoulder. "Scared, scared, scared." Daniel pulled him into a hug, squeezing his eyes shut. "I won't let anything hurt you. I promise." But the truth was, Daniel didn't know how to protect him. Not from this. Not from something ancient and unknown. He needed answers, and the only person who might hold them, his late wife's secret, was the one who left him this trail to follow. When Eli finally pulled back, Daniel stood and walked to the table with shaky steps. He opened the journal again, scanning page after page for something he might have missed. Then he found it. Halfway through the journal was a page written in darker ink, as if she wrote it urgently. If you've found this entry, then the necklace has awakened. Do not let Eli wear it for long periods. Do not ignore the visions. And whatever you do, Daniel, do not wait. Daniel exhaled slowly, hands trembling against the edges of the paper. She knew everything. He turned to Eli, heart pounding. "We're going." The boy blinked, surprised. Daniel knelt, grabbing the boy's hands, looking into his eyes. "I don't know what's happening. I don't know what that place is. But if you're hearing something, anything, then we're leaving. We're finding answers." Eli nodded once, relieved. They spent the next hour packing a bag, clothes, the journal, batteries, snacks, a flashlight, and the necklace wrapped in cloth. Eli made sure it was the first thing placed inside. When they stepped outside, the sky was gray and heavy with clouds. The wind was sharp, cold, almost cutting. Eli shivered and reached for Daniel's hand. Daniel squeezed it tightly. "Wherever this leads," he whispered, "we'll face it together." But the moment they stepped off the curb, Eli froze. His head tilted sharply to the side. His expression changed. The necklace pulsed inside the bag, and for the first time in his life, Eli slowly turned toward a sound Daniel could not hear.